Daniel is a visual maker at Pantopicon and co-founder of Present Futures. Pantopicon is a foresight and design studio that enables people and organizations to see, design for, and act upon the challenges which tomorrow might bring. At Present Futures, Daniel collaborates with experienced designer Bettina Schroll, where they conduct the research on possible future realities, using and developing methods through a combination of art, craft, storytelling, and experience design practice. His presentation is entitled In Light of Dark Matter.
Hello, everyone. So thanks for coming. I'm going to start with a little bit of I'm going to take you on a journey. So bear with me for the next 3 to 4 minutes. It's morning. You wake up, stretch, touch your feet to the floor. A sequence of vibrations coming from your pocket stone on the bedside table reminds you of the day ahead. It's January 21st, 2033. Picking it up, the surface is cold. You dress, place the stone in your pocket, pour a cup, slip on some shoes, and slide open the door. The space out front of your dwelling is long, narrow, and open. Dotting this green corridor are many compact, square, low concrete structures, all oriented toward the same vanishing point. These are the personal temples, and each community has their own. You notice some are already occupied, but it isn't long before an empty one presents itself. The tall, rectangular opening welcomes you inside, the structure growing up and out the further you move inwards, amplifying the space. The slow, rising sun spills its warmth from behind you, lighting up the interior. There is a low, round stone table at the center with a square rug at its base, inviting you to take a seat, and the thick walls fade out any outside noises to a hum. The table's face is marked with deep circular grooves, spiraling inwards until it reaches a long cylindrical form, jutting out like an antenna. This is the collective thought wave emitter. Reaching into your pocket, you pull out the slightly warmer pocket stone and place it onto the table's surface. It vibrates once, connecting and dialing in your data. You take a deep breath and focus. Your back is warm and your mind begins to wander into the unknown, floating until it dials in on some voices. There are connecting conversations between temples, and transmitting a simple hello acknowledges your presence, and the others greet you back with a summarized soundbite. Quickly up to speed, you engage in the conversation, discussing the daily politics, delegating responsibilities, and in this particular case, acknowledging the passing of another community member. You can feel the heaviness of the loss emanating through your nervous system, forming a knot in the pit of your stomach. This person was not even an acquaintance, however, the haptic feedback triggers emotions that allow you to empathize and feel the loss as if your own. The air around you cools as the sun continues its cycle upward, bringing the conversation to a point of to be continued. Phasing yourself out, you open your eyes to a now darker space. The pocket stone is warmer. Picking it up, you exit the temple. The sun slightly higher in the sky. The day has moved forward, and now, so can you. So, who am I? My name's Daniel. I'm a visual maker. I work at strategic foresight and design studio Pantopicon. And our main headquarters are in Antwerp, in Belgium, where the studio's been practicing for the past 12 years. And more recently, here in Toronto, since I've moved back just over a year ago. And what we do is we enable people and organizations to see, design for, and act upon the challenges which tomorrow might bring. And we use speculative and analytical means to craft tools and processes, stories and strategies, products and experiences to stimulate debate, inspire action, and catalyze change. That short story that you just listened to was a narrative that I wrote born of a larger project that began as a 2-day workshop led by my firm, which explored future alternatives to democracy and governance. Participants began with building blocks of various future societal developments that, when mapped together, would create a world with new parameters and new logics, fleshed out and communicated using different prototyping and storytelling exercises. This particular narrative was inspired by one of the worlds that emerged, a place called Our. And what you experienced was the morning ritual that each individual in this particular society would exercise. At Pantopicon, we explore using different storytelling methods when imagining these speculative futures in order to help render our foresight practice more tangible, resulting in it hopefully becoming more accessible. So, what I would like to explore with you here today is the power of storytelling and the storytelling experience and its many immersive potentials. More specifically, how the power of experience has the potential to connect people and build relationships with the seemingly complex, far-fetched, or far-reaching, and hopefully how this can render people more empathic and actionable when dealing with complex issues such as well-being and the many individual nuances of truth. But first, let's all take a quick trip to space, one of the most powerful and life-altering experiences that I have come across. More so in its resulting actionable effects is what is called the overview effect. So when astronauts first turn the camera not to show Houston more images of space, but turn the camera back on Earth itself, we as people, for the first time, saw ourselves from a perspective never before seen, but it was there all along. A fragile blue ball suspended in an infinitely vast and incredibly silent yet treacherous expanse, protected by the thinnest of membranes. In that moment, not only did astronauts experience a cognitive shift in understanding, but we, humans, on Earth, did as well together. Borders disappeared, conflicts dissipated, and we were overcome with a sense of awe, feeling a oneness with the Earth and its people. Astronauts lucky enough to go up to space and gaze down on Earth return as strong advocates for change and voices for the protection of the planet. But until SpaceX or Virgin Galactic make that trip feasible, you and I are stuck on Earth. And we can only imagine, speculate what this would feel like by listening to their stories, watching films, and consuming images. Can these visuals and stories alone be enough to sustain these effects to the rest of the people of Earth? So, alongside my studio work, I began a design research practice with a good friend and colleague, Bettina, called Present Futures, as Simon mentioned. And our first ever project that we seem to be constantly reworking, revisiting, and redefining, and rediscovering is called the Memory Cloud Apparatus. In fact, we had a session last night, and some of you are even in the crowd. It's an experiential workshop that investigates the future of immersive cloud computing. In other words, for others, a future when we will be able to store our actual memories in the cloud, granting the possibility for others to access a detailed digital version of our physical selves. The idea was born out of speculating the future of caring for patients with dementia and how a person's self could be preserved or better yet, understood by caregivers when being given treatment. And we piggybacked on concepts such as Ray Kurzweil's idea of singularity, stating that a futurist who stated that man and machine will eventually become one, opening up the possibility to download or upload one's consciousness to machine-based entities in order to surpass the limited lifespan and capacity of the human body as we know it. It's very far-fetched, seemingly so. But we can already see traces of how we build our social media profiles and construct a sort of digital self accessible by others, albeit using simpler technologies. And as AR and VR continue to develop and become more immersive, we'll see this become even more sophisticated. So, to try and make these seemingly far-fetched ideas resonate, we immersed people in this workshop. And we also took them along on a journey, taking them with a narrative, much similar to the one I opened the presentation with. But we also created a physical prototype that was part of the experience for people to engage with as a physical touch point that when put forward as a concept, many interesting and unanticipated issues were raised. We find that as soon as the future becomes tangible and people can touch it and feel it and see it within a known reality, they begin building a relationship with the unknown. Calvino, in his 6 Memos to the Next Millennium, expresses that as soon as an object appears in a narrative, it becomes charged with a special force, becoming like a pole in a magnetic field, or a node in an invisible network of relations. The object's symbolic value can be explicit or not, but it is always present, and we might even say that the object in a narrative is a magic object. So, once people are immersed and feel and negotiate these future-based but present-oriented experiences, a more concrete relationship to otherwise abstract notions becomes established. This relationship builds meaning. Meaning helps frame perspective, shifting one's cognitive understanding to allow for their agency to become more explicit, hopefully leading to rendering people more actionable by evaluating ideas and concepts constructively and collectively. Curator, critic, and design historian Glenn Adamson also states that the thing about an object is that if you put it in front of someone, they actually have to deal with it. It's demanding. In this case, the memory cloud apparatus is that object that acts like a sort of matter carrying hidden strategic meaning, issues of memory loss, the digital self, privacy, access, all things that participants end up exploring through the context of the narrative or the meta. But what actually governs and drives an individual's experience is often invisible and intangible. It's the dark matter. They're the raw feelings that manifest by interacting with both the matter, the object, and being immersed in the meta, the narrative. And it's important to shed light on this dark matter in order to better understand the root of people's sentiments that otherwise could lead to irrational behavior based on decontextualized thought. But we are still missing a last and very important piece to this puzzle. And it stands, as it stands now, the memory cloud apparatus experience is just a simulation. It's removed from a person's actual immediate reality. And similar to watching a film, the moment the lights turn on and the further you separate from the actual site of that simulated experience, the feelings and sentiments born of that experience begin to fade. And it's not because they weren't real. In fact, they're very real. But it's more because there's a lack of reinforcements within your own reality, the one you actually have to negotiate and make work. An integral component of the experience was a mapping exercise, prompting individuals throughout this narrative to take mental notes of the atmosphere, envision spatial forms and shapes, images and sounds, smells, even imagining a travel companion modeled after a close friend or relative. These are all constructs that draw from an individual's personal life experience and imagination to fill in the blanks. These individual future memory maps, once placed together, form a sort of collective topographical overview. So, let's go back to that short narrative I began with. You all here, in your own way, went through a similar exercise while listening to this story. On an individual basis, you began constructing images in your mind, referencing things to you, known to you, in order to make the story make sense and be relatable. But in this case, we all did it together, as a collective. Looking around you, imagine the many different iterations and mental images, all equally valid and just as important as your own. So here in this hall, we have created meaning together from a simple narrative experience without taking a rocket ship to space, If we can take that with us as we step out of those doors, over there, we not only become more actionable in the conversations and experiences we choose to partake and engage with, but the sentiments and ideas born from the desire to act become more achievable simply by being a collective. Thank you.